Thank you for joining us. You are watching a virtual program organized by the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. This program is live and questions in the chat are encouraged. This program is also being recorded and will be available to rewatch afterwards. So, whenever you hang out with your friends, usually somebody is doing the cooking and the other people are mooching and watching like we are. Tonight, we're in Jay Ducote's kitchen, where he will be talking with us about his new book, his new cookbook, Jay Ducote's Louisiana Outdoor Cooking, co-authored with Cynthia Lejeune Nobles. We are just hanging out, chatting. If you have any questions, put them in the chat and we will pass them along. But ultimately, he's just going to be cooking for us. What are you going to be cooking?
I am going to be cooking a roasted pork tenderloin with some Brussels sprouts. This is my cast iron bake that's in the cookbook. It's a great recipe to cook outside, but it's also one of the best ones in my book to be able to bring inside and just do it on the stove and in the oven. So it's the one that I thought would be great to do tonight for our library audience. And I'm also trying to do some social media of my own right now and get this shared to my Jay Ducote page. And we're going to share it to the Talk 1073 page. I was just on the Talk 1073, my radio show over on Talk 1073. And now I want to share it with that audience as well. So bear with me for a second here on this Facebook Live as I'm doing some social media shares. But this is going to be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, we don't mind. We're just in the moment, Jay. We're not really trying to do anything too fancy.
Yeah, well, I mean that's really how that's how cooking should be, right? Like let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It should be fun. It should be tasty, and we ought to be able to just have a good time in the kitchen, and that's what it's all about. After all, that's really a big part of my journey. Has just been kind of finding like a passion for culture, especially through the lens of food and beverage. And in Louisiana, we have so much of that. And so it's just been a lot of fun to explore that. A lot of times that exploration has really been through the activities that I've gotten involved with, from being an undergrad at LSU and really majoring in tailgating. They gave me a degree in economics and political science, but really I majored in tailgating. And all the way to doing competitive barbecue and then doing Food Network shows. Like that whole journey has really just been it's been a lot of fun, but it's really the intellectual curiosity has really been what's carried me through it. It's been really wanting to explore like recipes and the history of food and how people from around the globe can really eat the same things but cook them in completely different ways, and with a little tweak of methodology or the indigenous herbs and spices you can create a totally different dish. And so just exploring food in that way has been really kind of the cornerstone of my career at this point. And so now I get to continue to share that with people on the radio and through my new book, Jay Ducote's Louisiana Outdoor Cooking. It's just came out in mid-September. It was published by the LSU Press. I am a two-time LSU alumnus, and so when the LSU Press reached out to me, like 6 years ago, and said, "Hey Jay, we want you to do a cookbook," and I just kind of said, "That's a great idea. Let's do it." And then it took 6 years to put a manuscript together, and it probably wasn't going to happen in my life because in my world just got so busy with everything else that I had going on. And LSU Press finally kind of got back to me. They were just like, "Jay, where's that manuscript? Where's that book?" This was a couple of years ago now, and I just had to say, like, guys, like, I have this blog, I have this collection of recipes, I'm working on a restaurant, the barbecue sauce, and all this other stuff. I've never written a book before. I need help. I have all these stories, I have all these recipes, but I've got to have somebody to really help catalog that and put it together. And so Cynthia Lejeune Nobles came on board at that point, and really she helps like interview me and let me tell the oral versions of my stories that she then was able to transcribe and put into the book. And then I would go back and edit and go through that process. And same thing with recipes. I would just kind of get her, a rough jotted down ingredient list and recipes. Like, we cooked this dish at this event in Austin, Texas. Like, let's turn that into a recipe for the book. And she would help go through all that. And so it was definitely a team effort. And a lot of folks on my team throughout the years, Blair Loop, who still works for me, and quite a few other people helped certainly contribute to this book as well. I'm certainly very proud of it because it's been years in the making. Hopefully book number 2 doesn't take that long, but now I don't really have book number 2 going right now. It's just celebrating book number 1. But glad that everybody can be here with us, and thanks to the East Baton Rouge Parish Library for allowing me to come on here and talk about the book and do a little cooking demo from the book. So let's get started cooking, and Jessica and Adam from the library are on as well, and they can feed any questions or comments over to me, and we can also show what we're cooking here. So I know this camera angle, if we want to switch over here, we've got some beautiful Brussels sprouts here, and let's see, I don't need the audio there. Some great Brussels sprouts here, and then this one is my spicy and sweet barbecue rub. That's going to be our main spice blend. This is a smoked olive oil from Red Stick Spice Company that you see there. That's an olive oil that I love. The oil itself has been smoked, so it's going to add some really great flavor, but it's a nice extra virgin olive oil. This is actually my backyard brisket rub, which has been available on my website, but has never been out in the public, but I'm about to launch that as a new product in my product line. And then we have a beautiful pork tenderloin here as well. So all of this is really what we're going to get started with. And so to get started, let's see if I can put that somewhere where we can actually see it. I'm going to turn my pan on to like a medium high heat and get that started. And,
okay, well,
yeah,
Jay,
go ahead.
So the title of your book is Louisiana Outdoor Cooking.
Right.
So it's a lot of grill and barbecue recipes, but I can see clearly that you were in your kitchen.
This is true.
Yes. How many of these recipes in this cookbook can you translate to either in the kitchen, or can you make without having a grill?
Great question. So we've really been able to adapt the vast majority of them to indoor cooking as well. Certainly anything that I would say should be grilled. You can do it in a cast iron pan or sear it. This barbecue rub's never been used, so I have to take off the seal. So there's just lots of different ways to take an outdoor recipe and bring it in. There's multiple substitutions for grilling. There's outdoor deep fryer recipes that you could absolutely do inside as well, although deep frying a whole turkey inside I wouldn't necessarily advise. There's a lot of recipes in the book that kind of the outdoor version of cooking them is to use the grill as an oven. So obviously you could do that inside, just on your oven or in your oven. So I coated this pork tenderloin with that olive oil from the Red Stick Spice Company. And now I'm giving it a generous coating of this JD spicy and sweet barbecue rub. The barbecue rub you can use a lot heavier than a lot of Cajun seasonings out there. And I love Cajun seasonings, and my friends at Slap Ya Mama have always been really good to me. I love their product. But this barbecue rub is really different than a Cajun seasoning because it's a lot less salt, and it means you can go a lot heavier on it. It's meant for outdoor cooking, smoking meats, things that kind of go low and slow. Yeah, there we go. Can y'all hear that sizzle?
I do.
There we go. All right, so I got my pork tenderloin down. in that pan. And I really am searing it here, like a blackening type of searing. I'm also washing my hands, you may notice. Keep it safe out there and in here. And now I want to turn my attention, and I'll let that keep searing there, but I want to come back to the cutting board here, if y'all can see that, and work on some of these Brussels sprouts. So the Brussels sprouts, I really just want to take like the very end off, and then go lengthwise in half. So just go kind of like that there. And if you have some extra leaves and stuff from that, that's perfectly fine.
So
You get
for
all
those
these
watching,
chopped up.
And cooking alongside Jay at home, which I'm not because I like my home in unburned to the crisp. This recipe is on page 62. So also this cookbook, Jay's cookbook, it came out last month, but you can find it at the library. Of course, I got to plug it. I'm the librarian. We have several copies across the system where they're ready to be checked out. So you can place them on hold on the website, ebrpl.com. Or you could always buy copies of Jay's cookbook. Where can they buy them?
Great question. So any purchases that come from jayducote.com, I will actually personalize and autograph. So certainly the holidays are coming up. Autograph copies can be purchased at jayducote.com, and I can even, I've got a space to leave a note there where you can tell me who I'm signing it to if it's a gift, or you can just say, sign it to me, it's for me. You can also find it at a handful of local shops around town. It's at both locations of Calandro's Supermarket in Baton Rouge, Iverstein Farms Butcher on Perkins, and Red Stick Spice Company, where this great smoked olive oil comes from. So those are all some possibilities for where you can find it. I'm gonna go to this pork tenderloin over here and give that a little flip. Oh, we're getting some nice color there. I love it.
Oh, that looks amazing. I am so jealous.
You want to get all
Jessica,
the way in there?
Jessica may not cook, but I do.
I eat.
That. Well, so that's important, Jessica. I
mean, it's an important thing.
I can appreciate good cooking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, that's what most cooks really want, is for somebody to just appreciate their food. So
absolutely.
If you can do that, then we're on the right track. Now, I kind of feel like this Facebook Live could have been even more fun if you were at home trying to cook along with me, and you know, I was trying to talk you through the recipe while you cooked it. I'm wondering if anybody on the Facebook Live is cooking along with me as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering the same. Fun. There's a lot of folks love it, throwing some love to Red Stick Spice for their amazing olive oil and spices, and throwing some love to your spices, Jay.
Nice. Yeah, so this spicy and sweet barbecue rub, is that a good placement in the shot there?
We've got a good question in from Tiffany.
Yeah, go ahead.
Any specifics on how long you're searing each side?
Good question. The specifics for me are usually by appearance and smell. So like the color, I'll try to get the camera, my phone camera back on the pork here. That color, like golden brown but not black, caramelized spices but not burnt, is really what I'm going for. I would venture to say that you're looking at around 3 to 5 minutes per side. I'm also going to try to get a little bit of sear on not just like the top and bottom side, but like the side, because you can kind of see, like, you can see how it's raw right here, but it's nice and seared on this side and nice and seared on this side. So I'm going to try to like actually get it to balance there as well. So really kind of sear it on all around if you can, and if you have to, get it up on the side of the pan, like so. And that sear is really just creating more flavor. There's the caramelization of not just the brown sugar and the spices that are in my barbecue rub, but we're also getting some actual caramelization of the pork, and we're bringing out some of the natural sweetness in the meat. A lot of times, if somebody wants to get scientific with you, they'll call it the Maillard reaction, which is the actual chemical process of that browning that you see. It's also obviously a huge part of the flavor in any Cajun dish that starts with sausage or chicken, a gumbo, a jambalaya, anything like that. You're almost always starting with browning your meats and then sauteing your vegetables, and obviously cooking down a roux or something if it's a gumbo. But the browning of that sausage and chicken is kind of a similar thing to what we're doing here. We're browning this pork tenderloin on all sides so that we get all that flavor, get even more flavor out of it.
I wish I could smell it through the Zoom call because it just
Yeah.
looks amazing. We got a couple more questions in the Facebook Live. There's
Sure.
I think this one's pretty did you use the smoked olive oil when you put it down in the skillet?
So what I did is I rubbed the smoked olive oil on all sides, and then I coated it with the barbecue rub. So the oil was actually applied directly to the pork, and then I went into a dry, hot skillet, but the pork had been oiled, is essentially what had happened. Now, I am, in just a second, when I pull this pork tenderloin out, I'm going to put a little bit more of that smoked olive oil in, and then I'm going to put all these Brussels sprouts in and get a nice little sear on them as well. So really, we're ready to do that. So I'm going to take this guy out, and we'll keep it right on this pan. We've got that smoked olive oil from Red Stick Spice Company, and I'm going to get a couple tablespoons of that down, and then we're going to add our Brussels sprouts, and they pop.
Ooh.
See, this is where Jessica might burn her house down.
Yeah. We have a lot of
the reason
smoke
they pop
detectors
like
in our
that
house.
is the hot oil and then the water that's in the vegetable content. And I don't want to overcrowd them because then they'll steam instead of sear, which I've learned in many ways. So we'll let these cook down just a little bit. I sliced them all in half. I really want to try to get that. You can kind of see, like, on all of them, there's a white side from the inside and then a green side that's the outside. I want to put that white side down for a little while and make sure I really get a nice little caramelization and sear there where I can. The leaves on the outside are gonna sear as well. But any of the ones, I'm just going through, and if I see the white part sticking up, I flip it over.
Okay. So
and
Jay,
at some point, I'm just going to toss them and turn them. Oh man! And you want to talk about smelling good? Now, with these Brussels sprouts in here too, it's smelling really good.
We get a lot of folks on here saying that they don't even like Brussels sprouts and they look great. And I don't know how you cannot like Brussels sprouts because I just want to smell them.
Yeah, I remember not liking Brussels sprouts as a kid, and I just don't think I ever had them prepared correctly. And once I got into food and I really kind of turned my palate to being much more adventurous, I had really good Brussels sprouts. And when I had really good Brussels sprouts is when I was just like, oh, these are delicious. Again, this whole recipe, it's simple. It's not too many ingredients, but you can find it on page 62 of my book. All right, now I'm just going to stir them all up a little bit. And there were a few that I did not have in earlier. So I'm gonna add those in. Keep mixing them up.
And this is on a medium-high heat?
Yeah, so I had it when it was a pork tenderloin in there, and I was just searing the pork tenderloin. And at that point, you know, the cast iron may have been a little cold right when I turned the heat on. I had it on a medium high. I did, when I pulled the pork tenderloin out, reduce it to more of a medium, although this stove and this burner of this stove kicks pretty good. So it's really probably still a little over a medium heat right now. And it's, you know, I want to get that sear on these Brussels sprouts. You can kind of see, if I get in here a little bit closer, like this leaf right here, you can kind of see how it's actually really getting some color. And over here, like I want that color. I'm not afraid of a little bit of heavier heat here and of getting some extra color in there, because that really is flavor. And these Brussels sprouts have really soaked up all of that olive oil that I had in the beginning. So at this point, just to keep it from sticking too much on the bottom, I am stirring it a little bit more. Now, these Brussels sprouts, I did not season at all. You remember I seasoned the pork loin, but the Brussels sprouts, I just went in with the olive oil. So now I'm going to add a little JD's Backyard Brisket Rub, which is actually just my blend of kosher salt and a coarse black pepper. This is what I use when I'm seasoning a brisket and I'm smoking that brisket for 12 hours over pecan or oak wood. Obviously I use a whole lot more on the brisket, but really it's just a good appropriate blend of salt and black pepper. And so anything that I have in my book that calls for salt and pepper and like a salt and pepper to taste in any recipe, that Backyard Brisket Rub actually is perfect for that. And I pretty much always use kosher salt in my recipes, but one thing that's harder to find is a coarse ground black pepper. It's out there, and you can get whole black peppercorns and grind it yourself, and there's lots of ways to do it. But especially for brisket, I want the coarser black pepper. I want that black pepper that's really gonna kind of have a little bite and a little flavor to it. Now what I'm gonna do is right in the middle of my pan, I'm gonna make a little trough in the Brussels sprouts. And then I'm gonna come back with my pork tenderloin. I'm gonna go right in the middle. And then I'm just gonna shuffle these all around. And that pork tenderloin, we really just, all we did on the stove was brown it on all sides. And all we've really done on these Brussels sprouts is sear them a little bit. So at this point in time, I'm gonna take this to a 400-degree oven. And I can try to have you guys follow along, but I also have to open my oven. Here we go. And so that's gonna go in. And now I want that to cook in the oven at 400 degrees for, it's really until the pork tenderloin temperature reaches like an internal temp of about 145. That's kind of that medium flavor or medium temperature for pork that you want to cook it to. And so probably about 8 minutes in the oven is what we're looking at, and then it'll be ready to come out. Now, domestic pork these days is really not, it's safe to eat medium rare. All you hunters out there, Louisiana has a lot of people that are into hunting and fishing and those kind of things. If you get a wild hog, which is a nuisance animal, and absolutely go, if you're a hunter, take down a wild hog if you want to. Those wild hogs, you need to make sure you're cooking well done. They still can carry some diseases that you need to cook them to well done to make sure that they're safe to eat. But domesticated pork in America at this point in time really has no signs of trichinosis or anything like that. So really you can eat pork a little bit more like a medium rare, what you would do on a steak. certainly medium, where you're not cooking all of the moisture and the fat out. One thing that I really don't like with pork is when it's overcooked and dry. And a lot of times people do that because they're afraid to undercook the pork, but really you don't have to worry about it nearly as much as you used to. You don't have to worry about it at all if it's just, you know, a pork tenderloin from the supermarket or something. It's really only in a wild pig that you would have to worry about anything. So don't be afraid to cook your pork to medium instead of well done. Chicken, on the other hand, always well done, right? That's kind of the rule there. The golden rule of chicken, 165 degrees. So the temperature that I said for this pork tenderloin, 145 internal, if you want to get a thermometer out or something. But chicken, you want to make sure it's at 165 to kill off any bacteria or salmonella or anything like that that's in there. But enough about that. Do we have any more questions coming in?
I have a question.
Okay.
So what's the earliest or the oldest cookbook that you remember using or looking through, like when you were younger? Is there one cookbook that stands out, like you were a little kid and you remember just kind of digging through it?
So my granny cooked a lot. This was my dad's mom, and actually, let me take my phone camera here and go through my kitchen a little bit. So this is my granny's old book collection, and she was from New Roads, and then my grandfather was from Cottonport, Louisiana, in Avoyelles Parish. So this Avoyelles cookbook here, and then these old River Road recipes book, and this Art of Creole Cookery, and those books are really special to me. I also have some taco books over here for inspiration for government taco, and I have some whiskey, and this was my granny's old sugar container and one of her super ancient pressure cookers up here. Then on this side, I have a few more books that I enjoy and that I've acquired over the years. The Shameless Carnivore, Hardcore Carnivore is a friend of mine named Jess Pryles. She's Australian, but in Austin now, and she just recently came out with that book. And then I have some more over here. This is not a cookbook. This is a novel, Like Water for Chocolate. So this book is special to me here, especially because so one of the things that really helped get me into food in a lot of ways, when I was a freshman at LSU, maybe it was sophomore year, but I took an English course that was taught by a lady named Garnett Branch, and it was called Food and Culture in Literature. So it was an English course, it was a literature course, it was reading books, but every book that she selected, food in some way or another was the central theme of the book. And so we read this entire book of poetry that was all food-based poems. We read Like Water for Chocolate, which is this young girl growing up in a Mexican household, and food just kind of always being a theme to them. We read Angela's Ashes, which is set during the famine in Ireland, where hunger is always a theme in the book. And so that class always just like stuck with me, especially as I've kind of made my way in the food world. Is like, man, like one of my favorite classes I took in college was Food and Culture and Literature, and now that's kind of what I do. Something
That's
more
pretty
along those
amazing.
lines. So you never know when you're a teacher, you never know what kind of impact you're going to have on a student like that. When you're a student, you never know what class it's going to be that really has that sort of impact on your life and your career.
Jay, we've got a few questions coming in over the Facebook Live. So one, which I think is serious, I hope it's serious because I'm thinking about it too. What cocktail would you pair with that tenderloin?
Oh man, that's a great idea. And I meant to pour myself a glass of wine earlier. I might have to go get a glass because I have a couple bottles open over here.
And then
good one.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We got plenty of comments about River Roads too.
Me, actually. Okay, so if we're switched back over to this camera, there we go. So This house was actually designed for filming. That's where I've been cooking over there. Ovens over here, all sorts of pantry space. Now, a normal person would just use that as their pantry. I actually use this room as my pantry, complete with spice racks, vacuum sealer. There's also government taco stuff over here. And
Speaking
then
of government taco, I
this
see
wall over here, a lot of people really want to see.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's bourbons up here, and then we go to Scotch and Irish whiskey, and then different other whiskeys and liqueurs, and then a couple shelves of rum, and then we get to tequila, vodka. So that's fun. But I came in here for a wine glass, so there's all my glassware as well.
What kind of wine are you getting to go with
pantry
this?
space? The wine is going to be a bottle that I have open already because waste not, want not here. I'm going to go with this. This is a bourbon barrel aged Cabernet Sauvignon from California.
Ooh.
So I actually, we had this recently on my radio show, and I need to put my camera down so you can switch to the other angle. We drank some bourbon or some barrel aged red wines on my radio show recently, and so this is left over from that. So cheers.
People are loving
So
your
red wine.
liquor room, by the way, but red wine is what you're pairing.
So red wine is what I have open right now and is what I'm going to pair first. But cocktail wise, I actually think that a Sazerac would go really well with this dish. Kind of the herbal qualities in the Sazerac, what's in the herb saint, or an absinthe if you're going to use that, and then the Peychaud's bitters as well. I think it would pair really well with kind of that earthiness of the Brussels sprouts and then the seasoning that's on the pork tenderloin. So I think a Sazerac would be a great cocktail pairing to answer the question.
So what would be a good book to pair, aside from the cookbook, obviously? What would be a good book to pair while you drink your wine and you eat your cooked meal?
That is an excellent question. I need to figure out. I need to get back to reading for pleasure. Kind of hard when trying to open up a restaurant. A lot of the books that I've read recently have been more like professional development, leadership type books.
Those count.
One of my favorite authors of fictional work to read for fun was always Tolkien. I love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. Hobbit movies, not so much. But I love Tolkien's work and the world that he created. At some point in time, I would really love to read all of George R.R. Martin's writings of Song of Fire and Ice, or Ice and Fire, whichever way it is. What became Game of Thrones, because I love Game of Thrones so much, but I've never attempted to read any of that. I've also, I will ashamedly say that I've never read any of the Harry Potter books. I listened to one of them on a road trip on a book on tape, but I've seen all the movies, but I've never read any of it. So sorry, library.
That's okay. No, there are plenty of people say, oh, you're a librarian. That means you've read all these classics. And I say, no, I haven't. But the good thing about working at a library, and even just having a library in my community, is
go into the oven real quick.
When I'm ready, I can read it when I want. Let's see what you got going on.
Ooh, there we go. Oh yeah. Looking pretty good in there. Feel like I'm gonna let it go for a couple more minutes, but we can also, I'll just do this live on camera. We're gonna check the temp. I said we're cooking to 145, so let's see how close we are. Assuming I don't burn myself while we're at it. I'm not worried about burning my house down, Jessica, but I have been known to burn a fingertip or two every now and
So going back to the books, Jay, somebody says that your guilty pleasure might be Twilight.
then. Also, never read it and never seen the movies, but maybe I would enjoy it.
Maybe.
All right, so I got the probe into the middle, and you see we're showing around 130. I've stuck it a couple times. You can tell, like, if I do this on the outside, you can tell we're ready. But when you go to the inside, we're not quite to 145 yet, though we're getting close on that smaller end. That's kind of about where I thought we would be based on timing and the thickness of that pork tenderloin. About 130 in the thickest part, and I want to get to about 145. So we'll let it keep going for just a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ready.
Okay.
Okay, well, how about another question? So you mentioned earlier that you co-wrote it with Cynthia. There was a lot going on. Like, obviously, you both didn't do the same thing. Like you said you worked together. So she took what you had and kind of put it into this narrative in your cookbook. Would you say that, I don't know, writing is hard. Writing is really hard for anybody watching who writes any kind of fiction or anything like that. It's a hard thing to do. Do you find that it was still a challenge, even though you had a team to help you, like Cynthia, a wonderful writer, to help you get this down? Did you feel like could you do this on your own?
Yeah, so huge challenge, massive project, way more than the master's thesis that I wrote. So I would imagine that somebody that wrote a dissertation probably put together something close to this. The amount of, especially as a cookbook, right? Like the amount of organization that it took, the amount of, this many recipes in each chapter. How are we dividing the chapters? We actually decided to do the chapters in this book mainly by type of protein. So it's beginnings, which is a lot of my stories from the early days and how I got into cooking, and and more narrative stories. Then we go to tailgating, which are some recipes that kind of didn't really fit anywhere else, but they're just like my classic tailgating recipes. But then we do pork, beef, and then some lamb and some goat there as well. Seafood, poultry and game birds, wild game, produce and vegetable dishes. And then we have the final chapter, which is more like sauces and rubs and stuff like that. So that's really kind of how we decided to divide the book up. But the amount of organization that went into it was really tough. The amount of just like, oh, I want to put that story in the book, but where does it go in the book? In some ways, I would think that writing like a fictional narrative, maybe you could kind of write it from start to finish a little bit. I'd love to hear what a lot of authors go through. Maybe you have an ending in mind and then you kind of let the story develop as you write. Here, it was take all of these different pieces, all these different stories, all these different recipes, and then organize this manuscript in a way that makes sense to the reader and that makes sense to us. And so you'll find different stories throughout the book. You'll find different anecdotes about my time on Food Network Star, or when I got kicked off of Cutthroat Kitchen making falafel cracklins, or something along those lines. But where to put all those stories was kind of daunting. That's where Cynthia helped me out a lot, because she was able to really kind of take a step back and take the time and really put that manuscript together with all of my stories and recipes in there. So there was a huge help. I would not want to do it again on my own. I would love to do it again, but not on my own. With everything that I have going on, I need somebody to help me. I need somebody that has done it before. I need somebody that has those organizational skills and that really is passionate about putting something like that together. And that's, Cynthia certainly brought that to the table. And then a lot of motivation and inspiration along the way, which was pretty important, because it was a multiple years of work, not straight through by any means, but of just like having this project on the back burner, bringing it up to the front burner, moving it back to the back burner, saying, all right, this month I'm going to put these 5 recipes together, and if I get that accomplished, it was a good month. And so it took a long time to put that manuscript together. Certainly a tip of the cap to all the other writers out there and anybody else who's put a book of any kind together, because it's definitely no easy feat. When I have time, Jessica, kind of back to your question, like, I like to write, and I got truly professionally into the food world as a writer. It was a food blog, and then all sorts of freelance food and beverage writing. I've written for magazines and websites, a lot here in Baton Rouge and some around the country. I've done blogs that I started in 2009. And so I really kind of made a name for myself and came up in the food world really through writing, and then radio and TV and the media side of food, more than the cooking side of it. And like the cooking came after I got passionate about food and I was writing about food, and you know, and then I started to dabble in, well, gosh, that looks really good, I want to cook it myself. You know, or something like that. And then I was able to, through all those different outlets, make a brand for myself that people wanted to eat my cooking. But I didn't do that at a restaurant. Like most chefs would go through, work your way up at a restaurant, become an executive chef, make a name for yourself, and then have people asking you to do private dinners or wanting to eat your cooking at a pop-up restaurant or something like that. Like, I went the complete opposite way. And you know, no regrets about that, but it's no regrets at all. Like, I think it's the cool part of my story. It's the part of my story that I love. Like, it's a very unconventional path to getting to this point in a career where I get to say I eat and drink for a living.
Yeah. And so, like, this cookbook is basically this progression of your writing experience. Like you said, you started out just kind of with blogs and articles and things like that, and you've just built on it to where now you have this thing, this tangible thing that you can hold in your hand, this book. So is that, how does that make you feel to be able to hold it in your hand, to hold a book in your hand?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm gonna go hold a cast iron skillet in my hand for a second, so we can come back to the oven here, and I'm gonna pull this guy out. And we'll take this back over to the stove. And I'm gonna close the oven. And we'll check the temperature again just to see if I was justified in doing such a thing. Look at that, 157. I said 145, right?
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
You did.
All right. So now I'm going to toss all these Brussels sprouts around a little bit. And I'm going to take my pork tenderloin out. And in the book, what it says we want to do right now is let it rest for about 5 minutes. I don't really want to wait 5 minutes for Facebook purposes. So I'm just going to go ahead and slice it. But at home, what you would want to do is let it rest for just a few minutes, just kind of so all the protein fibers congeal. One thing I always like to do, kind of when slicing anything, a pork tenderloin, the grains of the muscle are pretty much always going to run lengthwise, but I can kind of see that the grains here are running this way. So I want to slice across the grain. So I'm going to start slicing it like this. And that's just so you get a more tender bite. So how's that? Yeah, we're on camera properly. We're looking good. So really what I want to do is slice the whole thing. And then if you were serving like a family style dinner or something like that, if you were sitting down with with a date or a family of 4 or whatever the case might be. You could just kind of serve this entire skillet is what I would want to do. So you just kind of, now you can take all the pork and go back to the pan. And then that's really kind of how you could serve it, take it to the table and have a meal.
Very nice.
With the wine. Good times.
Absolutely.
There we go. And if you saw the juices run out here, that wouldn't have happened quite like that if I let it rest for 5 minutes, like the book says to do. You know,
absolutely.
It's in the instructions.
Let's see. Adam, do we have any questions in Facebook right now?
We do. I kind of let it slide there. So we had some questions about Food Network Star.
Okay.
And we also had a question. Someone's designing their new kitchen, and they want to know what their must-have item is for their new kitchen.
Yeah. So that oven that we cooked this pork tenderloin in is a Wolf steam oven. And I use that oven regularly. I can take you back over there. So I've got a 2 oven system here. This is like a normal convection oven, regular oven. It's a nice oven, but a regular one. And then this is the steam oven. It almost looks more like a microwave. You can see that it's a good bit smaller. There's a second rack that can go in there. When I'm playing around with it here, like I can steam. It's got a reheat setting that's like lower temperature with steam, auto steam bake, convection, which is going to take the steam out, convection humid, convection steam. So different water levels as well. It's really a pretty awesome piece of equipment. And I'm really glad that I got it, because when I was talking to them about doing the oven, I was just like, well, should I do 2 ovens? Like, let me just do a side by side or stacked on top ovens so that I can do. So I actually host dinners here sometimes. Haven't done it during COVID, and then we're working on opening Government Taco up right now. But hopefully, sometime in 2021, we get back to hosting private dinners. I can do dinners for up to 12 people. We usually do like 5 courses, wine pairings, the whole 9 yards. And it's a lot of fun. And so I needed the space to be able to cook for multi courses for that many people. And they were just like, do 1 regular oven and then 1 steam oven. And I'm really glad I did. The other thing that I have that I would not take away, and Adam, you saw this earlier when I put this cutting board here up, but underneath this cutting board is actually a deep fryer. So it's got a lid on it usually, but I take the lid off to use the deep fryer. So this is it's an in-counter deep fryer, and then it's got like all the drain down here and stuff. So unlike a lot of the tabletop deep fryers that sit there on top and then it's hard to drain and hard to filter, like this is ready to go. You just open a valve, drain it once it's cold, drain the oil, and then get it ready to go again. But that in-counter deep fryer is like awesome. It's one of my favorite pieces of equipment, because you know, whenever the time is right to fry some shrimp or you know, just whatever, if we're doing a dinner and we just need like a fried garnish or something, not having to get out a different countertop fryer or fry in a cast iron skillet and have the splatter everywhere. Like we just have a fryer built in. So that's pretty
amazing. Sweet. That sweet doesn't even cover it. If I had the ability to do that, I would do that immediately.
Yeah. So it was in 2017. this house looked nothing like this. This was actually a house that my dad had bought in 2000, 2001. It's not the house I grew up in, but my father had purchased it. Me and my brother and my sister all took turns living here. It very much looked like a Baton Rouge neighborhood out of the 60s or 70s interior. And my dad retired. My sister and I were living here at the time. He basically said, I'm retiring and selling the house, y'all get out. And I said, well, how about you sell it to me? And he was just like, well, I'm intrigued, tell me more. And I said, well, first you'd have to help me renovate it. And like, I mean, renovate it. Like, we're gonna gut this house. We're gonna replace every square inch of paint and flooring. I'm gonna knock down a couple walls. And like, I kind of sketched out what I wanted to do to open up the kitchen to the dining room. And actually I can show on this camera, turn it this way. So that's the dining table that 12 people can sit at. And that painting there is actually a piece of art that my mom painted when she was in high school. But so anyway, I was just like, I'm gonna knock this wall between the kitchen and this, what would be the living room, out. I'm gonna knock down a wall back here that was between the kitchen and what would have been the formal dining room. You know, and then I'm gonna be able to do these events, and I'm gonna have a kitchen that I can film in. And then we got Acadian House Kitchen and Bath here in Baton Rouge on board to help design and pick materials and all that. And Appliance Distributors of Louisiana helped source all of the Wolf and Sub-Zero equipment. And the whole point of it was to kind of create a creative space for me, a space where I could do TV cooking demos and film other stuff like that, and then do private dinners and things along those lines. So it's worked out pretty well. That was 3 years ago. This time, 2017, this house was completely under construction and was gutted and being rebuilt to what it is now, and been a solid investment because I've been able to have fun with it.
Yeah, kitchen is ginormous.
It is a huge room in this kitchen, but you know, like whenever I have people over, we're in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people interact that way these days. Like if you're home by yourself and you're just cooking for, even if it's for your family, y'all might not be hanging out in the kitchen all the time. You might mostly be in the living room, and the kitchen is just where you have your refrigerator or cook some food. But like for me, when I have people over, like even if we're just drinking beers and hanging out, we're hanging out in the kitchen. And especially with this kitchen, I mean, this is where we are. We're just, you know, in this room and hanging out.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll just kind of start to wrap it up. Adam, is there anything else from Facebook? Looks like.
Sorry, I muted there. Yeah, we've got one more question here. What is your favorite Louisiana dish to cook? That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I beat Bobby Flay at a crawfish boil, so that one's always.
Should have.
Yeah, well, that's right. I would have been embarrassed if I had lost, but still pretty excited that I won. I do love to boil crawfish, but you know the crazy thing is, and I'll give a shout out to my cousin Travis and my buddy Eusebio. Whenever we did our huge crawfish boils with our tailgate group back in the day, I was never the one boiling the crawfish. It was Travis and Eusebio who were actually doing the crawfish boil. I was always kind of in charge of the guest list and the money and the beer and all that stuff. But still pretty cool that I got to challenge Bobby Flay to a crawfish boil and beat him. I love gumbo. I love cooking gumbo. I love, like, if I have time and when it's gumbo weather, and I'll eat gumbo in any weather, but I only want to really cook gumbo when it's actually cold outside and I kind of want the warmth of the kitchen. But I don't mind standing over a roux for 45 minutes, an hour. and getting it dark if like I know that like I want to put that time and energy into a gumbo. I love crawfish étouffée as well. That's a dish that I've cooked a bunch, and then I love doing red beans and rice. I love quail. I love cooking and eating quail. Not necessarily a Louisiana dish, but actually on Food Network Star, I did a boudin stuffed quail where I had to make my own boudin. I mean, it was essentially a dirty rice, and then stuffed it inside of a quail and did a cranberry bourbon sauce. That was a fun dish. I love that one. So
That sounds amazing.
there's lots of stuff.
That sounds fantastic.
All Louisiana seafood too: shrimp, fish, oysters, crab.
And I bet you had a lot of fun exploring the different recipes to put in this book.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Went through the library of Louisiana ingredients for the book for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jay. We really
Is that how I
enjoyed
do
this.
the book face, Jessica? Is that
Almost a little lower.
A little bit lower, yeah. You need a second hand to help out.
Yeah. I love those posts from the library. You guys are doing a great job.
Oh, we love doing them. Book faces. They're really, it's fun to do. Okay, so yeah, so as you said in the beginning, you can get Jay's cookbook at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. We have plenty of copies across the system. You can check them out. Or if you would like to purchase your own, you can get signed copies through Jay's website and through various other places. Let me see if I can pull up this slide. Where are some places, Jay, that you can get it?
Iverstein Farms Butcher on Perkins, Red Stick Spice Company on Jefferson, and both Calandros, Government and Perkins and Segan, have autographed copies of the book, actually. They're not personalized, but they are autographed. There is a new bookstore coming to Denham Springs that I've been in touch with. I know they have the book. I don't know if they're actually open yet. I'd have to look at that one again. And then there's another bookstore called Beausoleil Books that's opening soon in Lafayette, and they have copies of my book already as well. And I've told them next time I'm coming through Lafayette, I'm going to stop by and sign the copies that they have. I actually, and this is, big time due to COVID-19 and just everything that's happening in the world, I have yet to step foot into the Baton Rouge area Barnes and Noble stores and some of the other bigger bookstores to see if they have it, but they very well might have the book in those stores. It's definitely available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, lots of other online retailers that you can order it from if that's more convenient for you. But jayducote.com is where I have it for sale, and that's where I can actually personalize the autograph before it gets shipped out.
Yeah, usually when we have these author events at the library, we have you there in person, and you're able to sell and sign the book right there. We all have to kind of adjust with COVID, so hopefully we'll be able to. Everybody will be able to go to your website and get that personalization there.
Yeah,
so,
for
yeah.
sure.
Thank
it's
you
gonna
so
make
much.
Great Christmas gifts too. I know a lot of people. A lot of people have been buying, 10 copies or something for. Not saying you have to do that, but I know people that have. And one of my really good friends in Indianapolis, who worked for the NCAA and all sorts of other places, she's gonna buy like 70 copies and have me personalize every one of them because she's giving it to like everybody on her Christmas list this year. I was like, yes, I can definitely do that for you. So
that is devotion.
If anybody else has that sort of idea, corporate gifts, anything else, you just let me know.
Or when you're preparing your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinners, you can cook up some of this grilled rattlesnake that you have in the book.
There is rattlesnake, there's squirrel, there's there's some of those ingredients and dishes that date back to growing up hunting and fishing with my dad and my grandparents, and some history lessons in here as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed you having us in your kitchen. We get to watch you work. Of course, you are on the radio. We get to hear your voice all the time. We love it. We love working with you at the library.
Well, thank you.
What are some other projects that are coming up? I know you keep mentioning Government Taco.
Yeah, can you say anything?
So the radio show is 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday on Talk 107.3. So that's a 5-day a week job, and on top of everything else that I do. But fortunately, the Jay Ducote show is really like 2 hours of me debriefing from my day, and it's celebrating life. We're usually talking about food and having drinks and talking about arts, music, entertainment, culture, some news, some sports, but really it's a lifestyle and culture show, and we just try to have fun and provide entertainment on the drive home on your talk radio, rather than being political talk radio or just doom and gloom news. We try to be positive and have fun and celebrate life on the radio. So that's the Jay Ducote show, 4 to 6, Talk 107.3. And then, yeah, the other huge project right now is the relaunch of Government Taco. So we were in White Star Market on Government Street from when White Star Market opened in 2018 until White Star Market closed in March due to COVID-19. White Star at that time announced that they were not going to be reopening. And so we knew we had to figure out something else for Government Taco. Now, that timeline's actually a little bit off because we actually knew that we were going to be moving out of White Star before that. And we had already signed a lease and were about to start construction on a new place. So now fast forward to October, and our new place is almost ready, and we are almost ready to open back up after not having been open in White Star since March and everything else. So I can say that I'll be there tomorrow receiving beer, wine, and liquor inventory, and my staff training is going on right now. If anybody knows somebody or is themselves looking for a job in the restaurant world, we are hiring right now. We have more staff training and just kind of getting ourselves organized next week. And then if everything works out well, we should be seeing a grand reopening of Government Taco in early November. So that's where we're at right now. Can't really put an exact date on the calendar for anybody. It depends on hiring and staff training and just making sure that we're ready, and we go through our friends and family and soft opening kind of nights so that we feel confident that we're ready to open. But soon we should be putting a true date on the calendar and starting a countdown.
Soon. Got it.
Soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. This was a wonderful evening, and let me pull up.
And we did a full hour. Look at that.
We did. We started a little late, thanks to yours truly, but we were able to make it up.
Well, now Adam and Jessica and everybody at the library, thank y'all so much. Thanks for having me, and everybody that's been watching this whole time. I've seen some of the numbers on Facebook. We've had plenty of viewers here, and so thanks to everybody who tuned in and was a part of this. It was fun.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this program, this virtual program, feel free to visit our Facebook page, which you are currently on if you're watching this right now live, or you can go to the library's YouTube channel, which is EBRP Library TV. We upload all of our virtual programs that we have live to this YouTube channel so you can watch and share later. And you can also go to ebrpl.com, our website, the main site, where you can find all sorts of live and virtual programs through the library. So thank you all for coming, and enjoy your night, enjoy your dinner.